Hey guys, Paul here, the Impulsive Culinarian, and in this video I can't wait to tell you about my gluten-free lemon garlic shrimp fettuccine with grilled asparagus. Yeah! Guys, welcome to part 1 of my Sexy Summer Supper series. That's a tongue twister. You try and say that 3 times fast, all right? And I can't wait to show you these 3 videos. We're doing 3 weeks of an entire meal from A to Z, complete with side dishes. And I'm going to pair it with a delicious wine at the end. So I'm going to tell you about the wine for this meal afterwards when the meal is done. But let's talk a little bit about this amazing supper, okay? We're talking about gluten-free lemon garlic shrimp fettuccine with grilled asparagus. So what's the first part of this whole thing? It wouldn't be a sexy supper unless you were making your gluten-free pasta from scratch. Yes. We're gonna do it. Today is the day. I've been holding off and I was like, oh, it's gotta be perfect. You know what? It is perfect and it's gonna be delicious. It's been so long since I busted out this pasta machine. Wow. I used to make tons of pasta before I discovered my own gluten intolerance, and I'm stoked to use this again. I've done a couple of tests and it came out fantastic. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. It's not that difficult. Don't be daunted by by the idea of making gluten-free homemade pasta, and it's delicious. That taste, that texture, can't be beat. You'll never go back. Next, we're going to do a cherry tomato salad. So that's going to be really, really nice, visually beautiful to look at. My cherry tomatoes are not ready, unfortunately. They're still green on the vine, but I went to the farmer's market and I got a bunch of delicious, look, all different colors. Look at these dark purple ones. They're gorgeous. And these nice, ripe, plump red ones, little orange guys, and all different, shapes and sizes. So that's a beautiful visual feast, and we're going to put some fresh ingredients in there to make that as delicious as possible. We're also going to do some grilled asparagus. So just over a pound of fresh asparagus. Okay, this is some local grown stuff at the farmer's market as well. I'm going to do mine on the barbecue because I just love that flavor and it's so fast, a nice little charring. If you don't have a barbecue, I'm going to tell you just quickly how to do it in the oven. It's really not that difficult, whichever way you do it. Okay, so whichever method you choose. And last but not least, this delicious lemon garlic shrimp. So if you've ever, I just love these Argentinian wild-caught shrimps, all right? Now, am I a shrimp snob? A little tiny bit, yes, and they are a little bit pricey. But if you can look, these look like they're cooked, eh? They're a little bit orange in color, but they're raw. They are raw, fresh caught, beautiful, succulent, they're sweet. If you really don't want to pay much for shrimp, don't ever try these, because you will never go back. They are absolutely amazing. And this is the kind of shrimp that I want to be using in a sexy summer recipe, okay? So that's basically the menu of what we're doing in this video. And the things that come along with these shrimp, of course, served on the homemade gluten-free pasta. Guys, it doesn't get any better than that. Let's talk about the ingredients that you're gonna need. Okay, so 4 parts to the ingredients list. Let's start with the homemade gluten-free fettuccine ingredients. 3/4 of a cup of corn flour with a little bit of extra corn flour for dusting. 3/4 of a cup of tapioca flour, 3/4 of a cup of sweet white rice flour, half a tablespoon of guar gum, and 4 organic eggs. All right, so next let's talk about the cherry tomato salad ingredients. You want to get 2 cups of cherry tomatoes, all different shapes and sizes and colors. It's going to just be beautiful, and we're going to cut those in half. 1 small shallot, which we're going to mince. 2 tablespoons of good quality olive oil. The juice of 1 lime. 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh basil, 1 teaspoon of organic honey, half a teaspoon of kosher salt, and some freshly ground black pepper to taste. Next, we're talking about the grilled asparagus ingredients. This one's very simple. 1 bunch of asparagus, around a pound or so, which you're going to trim. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, some kosher salt, and some freshly ground black pepper so you can season them before you pop them on the grill. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the lemon garlic shrimp ingredients. So I recommend that you get the size 20 to 30, all right, shrimps. You want to get around 1.5 pounds of those, which you're going to, of course, peel, devein, and clean really, really thoroughly. Get some kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper. That's to season the shrimp before you cook them. 1/4 cup of dairy-free margarine, 2 shallots thinly sliced, 4 garlic cloves, big ones, thinly sliced, the juice of 1 lemon, 1/3 of a cup of white wine, half a tablespoon of organic honey, 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh oregano, and 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh flat leaf parsley, 3 ounces of dairy-free white cheese, which you're going to finely grate, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and some more freshly ground black pepper to taste. Oh, I can't wait to tell you about the wine that I've chosen for the pairing on this meal, guys. It's going to be an absolute feast. Let's get cooking. All right, so welcome to my pasta making station. I got the machine all hooked up onto the counter. I got my dry ingredients. We're going to put all of those flours and starches in a bowl to start, and I'm going to whisk them together so that it acts like one dry ingredient. Then I'm going to dump it on this my clean workspace here. I'm going to make a little well, put my eggs in the middle, and we're going to start making some pasta. Let's get to it. 3/4 of a cup of corn flour, tapioca flour, and sweet rice flour. Okay, so my 3 dry ingredients and the guar gum are in here, not the eggs yet, of course, and we whisk that together really well. All right, there's our pasta flour mix. We're going to dump that on the counter. Make a well. Add in the eggs. So if you don't like getting your hands dirty, maybe this isn't the dish for you, but trust me, it's a lot of fun. Start mixing. So after around 3 or 4 minutes, guys, you're going to see that the combination of these ingredients creates basically a dry, crumbly mess. Well, this is where you have to have faith, and you got to keep on going, all right? So put your muscles right into it. Get the heel of your hand in there and keep folding it onto itself and keep on kneading until it becomes nice and smooth. Whew, that's a workout. So another 5 minutes. The transformation is almost complete. It starts to become almost malleable, almost, all right? If you've ever made pasta with regular flour, you're gonna notice there's a massive difference. It's not at all as forgiving as regular gluten-rich flour. But at some point, guys, you do manage to get this wonderfully textured ball of pasta dough. Whew. Take a breather, have a drink, and cut it into 4 equal pieces. Okay, so take a minute to really thoroughly disinfect and clean your work surface. I mean, there were raw eggs in there after all, so you want to make sure that that's not a health issue. And then, like I said, chop this into 4 equal pieces because you're going to work 1/4 of that dough at a time. And the rest of it, you want to wrap it up in a piece of plastic wrap so that it stays as moist as possible. You don't want that to dry out on you when you've made all of that effort and all that hard work to get it where it is. So, let's cut. All right, we're going to shift the camera to pasta machine mode. Much better. Now, like I was saying before, guys, you want to get a little bit of extra corn flour. Just keep it out on the counter so that you can dust your pasta as you need it. You know, a good, I'd say 1/4 of a cup, just handy, and keep the tin around in case. Now, you want to start, if you've never used a pasta machine before, I can tell you they are indispensable, and this is the right way to do it. Yes, you can do it with a rolling pin. And if you're, without a pasta machine, well, that's the best next thing. Get that rolling pin and make it as thin as possible. Dust it with a little bit of flour first, and then you can always cut the noodles with a knife. But if you're like me and you went gluten-free at some point in your life and you got one of these kicking around, well, bust it out, guys, and let's get rolling. So flatten out this 1/4 piece of dough as much as you can with the palm of your hand. Get it to around, I guess 3/8 of an inch thick. And then put your first roller on the widest possible setting and start rolling. Now let's see how it looks the first time you run it through the roller. It ain't pretty. So the first time through the press, it really looks like, I don't know, the map of some lost country, all right? It's not pretty, but that's okay. It's gonna take a little bit of time. The first couple of shots, you wanna fold it in half and get that first flat edge. That's basically the goal. And every time that you run it through on that largest setting, it's gonna eventually start to fill in all the gaps on the sides, and you're gonna be left with this uniform rectangular piece, and that's when you can start thinning it down to the next setting. Let's keep rolling. So I'm basically starting to have what's looking like a large, very thick lasagna noodle. So you want to bring down the notch 1 setting at a time and pass it through until it starts to become impossible to make it go any thinner. That's when you know you've reached the mark. It's different for every machine. So for me, between 1 to 9, it stops at 5. That's as thin as I can get. So act accordingly on your machine and start thinning it out as much as you can. All right, so I'm going for my final setting, which is 5 on my machine, and let her rip. So there we have the first of my 4/4 of pasta stretched out to setting number 5 on the machine. I'm gonna cut this in half, exactly down the middle, just around there, all right? And I am going to basically cut each of those halves into fettuccine-sized strips, with the machine, of course. All right, make some fettuccine. Fresh, gluten-free fettuccine, anybody? All right, so the trick is to sort of get that into a little nest, all right? And keep that aside to dry, rinse and repeat. So there's a couple of important virtues that are required in order to really be good at making pasta. Patience, of which I have none, and practice. If you're willing to put in the time, then you're going to have success with this. I remember making pasta on this machine before the whole gluten-free days, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And it was the same thing. It required practice and patience. The same thing happens with gluten-free pasta as does with normal pasta. If you work it too much, too long, it starts to dry out, and it's basically just get rid of it. Move on to the next quarter. Don't even bother losing your patience or wasting your time. So if you've scrapped 1 or 2 of the quarters of your dough in the process, guys, just be thankful that you got a couple of rounds out and do better the next time, and I promise you, it won't take you too long to get good at it. Let's have a look at what we've made. So there we've got some lovely nests of fettuccine. I really am super proud of this. You dust it a little bit with that corn flour just to keep it from sticking. I even tried a spaghetti. It's a little bit fiddly. This one, I'm not good enough yet. It's sort of falling apart. But you know what? When you really start to get good at it, you can actually make spaghetti. Anyhow, it was worth a try. All right, so you set those aside and let them dry and move on to the next step. All right, so set those noodles aside to dry and let's move to the other workstation. Okay, so now it's time to make the cherry tomato salad. So I love this variety of cherry tomatoes that I got at the farmer's market. They're just gorgeous. It's beautiful for the eyes. You eat with the eyes, right, as they say. So get yourself a medium to large size mixing bowl and let's start popping ingredients in there, starting with the halved cherry tomatoes. Oh, I forgot to buy a lime. Oh well, I'm going to use half of a lemon instead of the juice of 1 lime. Silly man. So all of our fresh ingredients are in the bowl, even have our seasonings in there, salt and pepper, some really good oil, a little bit of lemon juice because I forgot to buy a lime. Anyhow, it's going to be delicious nonetheless. So let's toss that together and set it aside. It looks delicious. It smells good. Chances are pretty good it's going to taste good as well. Get that in a small serving bowl. Okay, so that cherry tomato salad is going to be excellent served at room temperature, so there's no need to refrigerate it. In fact, you don't want to do that. You want to leave it on the counter, cover it up if you like. Now it's time to prep our shrimp fettuccine ingredients. Get the shrimp. All right, so measure out 1.5 pounds of raw shrimp. Okay, so around 30 shrimp should do the trick. Now, let's thaw them out in some really hot water. So for thawing out my shrimp, I like to use a large Pyrex container, just big enough to hold all of those shrimp. Then I cover them right to the top with some really hot water, the hottest water that comes out of your tap, and that should do the trick. If they're not fully thawed out after around 2-3 minutes, all you have to do is drain it off and add some more hot water, and they're going to be fine. All right, start peeling and cleaning those shrimp. Okay, so once you've finished cleaning up those shrimp, rinse them thoroughly under cold water. Okay, so go the extra mile, guys. Once you're done rinsing off your shrimp, put them out onto some paper towel and pat them dry. All right, so guys, I promise the 2 longest parts of making this recipe are complete. Cleaning shrimp, making pasta. Your big work is done. Now we can get to the fun stuff. Get your dried shrimp into a large mixing bowl and season them generously with salt and pepper. Beautiful, seasoned, wild-caught Argentinian shrimp. Oh, I love these guys. All right, cover them up and let's get them in the fridge. Move on to the next step. All right, so now we're in the business of preparing this shrimp fettuccine, and that's all going to happen in a large non-stick skillet. Okay, so get the biggest non-stick skillet that you've got so that it can hold all of that pasta and the shrimp. Now, before we get cooking on this, we're going to need to be able to add the cooked pasta into the skillet towards the end of the preparation of that dish. So in order to get ready for that, we need to start boiling some water in a large pot. So you want to heavily salt that water, all right, and cover it up. And if it comes to a boil before you're ready, that's okay. You can just bring the heat down to medium and let it simmer until you're ready to add the noodles. So put it over high heat and cover it up. So I like to prep all my ingredients and have them ready to go when you're in the thick of the moment. You don't want to have to start chopping stuff. So I'm going to get my shallots and my garlic and put them into some small bowls. So while we're in the business of prepping, might as well chop up the fresh herbs and grate some cheese. All right, so as you can tell by the smoke, my boiling water is ready to go. So I've just reduced the heat down to medium-low, and I'm gonna keep it boiling covered so that it's ready to go when I need to cook my pasta, my homemade gluten-free pasta. Now here is where the story could split. If you are doing asparagus in the oven, now is the time that you wanna preheat it to 425, get a small baking dish of some sort, trim your asparagus, and drizzle some olive oil, salt, and pepper. You want to get that in the oven for around 15 minutes. You don't have to touch it or flip it or anything like that. 15 minutes in a 425-degree oven should do the trick, and it'll be ready around the same time as the rest of your stuff. Personally, I want to do it on the barbecue. It's going to be done in around half the time, and I don't mind completing my shrimp dish first, setting it aside, go down to the barbecue and get my asparagus done. So 2 different ways to do it. It's entirely up to you. Now, let's get this shrimp fettuccine underway. Get your non-stick skillet, a really big one, over medium heat. All right, so next you want to get a 1/4 cup of dairy-free margarine into that hot skillet. So when that margarine is starting to melt and you know that the pan is good and hot, get those sliced shallots in there and saute them for around 3 minutes until they get soft. Wow, I had exactly 1/3 of a cup left of white wine. Thank goodness I don't have to go to the liquor store. Not that that's ever a bad thing, right? Hey, it wouldn't be lemon garlic shrimp unless we added some garlic, right? So get those sliced lovelies into the skillet. Mix that around and saute the onions and the garlic together for around a minute. All right, so next it's time to bust out those shrimps that you took so much effort to clean and prepare and season. And we're gonna saute those in the skillet along with the onions and the garlic for around 1.5 minutes. So you just pay careful attention to make sure to flip them over. If you see one that's raw on one side, just get them to be cooked, but no longer than that, 1.5 minutes. If you guys have ever cooked shrimp, you know that it doesn't take long. And prepare a clean, small bowl to receive those cooked shrimp, because as soon as they're done, you're gonna take them back out of the skillet and put them in a clean bowl. Leave the onions and the garlic as much as possible behind in the skillet, and just get the shrimps out so that they don't overcook. Let's cook some shrimps. So as you know, guys, it doesn't take long to cook shrimp, and especially with these lovely Argentinian succulent shrimps that I've got. You can see I'm not even at 1.5 minutes, and they're already starting to look pretty good. So I think I'm ready to take these in. All right, as soon as they're cooked, get them out, put them into that separate clean bowl. Okay, so try and leave as much of the onions and garlic in that skillet as you can. If some of them come out, that's okay. Set the shrimp aside, and now it's time to add your white wine, your lemon juice, and your honey, as well as the herbs. And you're gonna let all that reduce. So leave it over medium heat and add those liquids in. White wine first. Okay, so while those liquids are reducing, now it's time to get that pasta water back up to full heat, and let's cook our homemade pasta. So you remember my cutting board full of drying pasta. I got my little fettuccine nests here. So I made one spaghetti as a test. Unfortunately, I kind of screwed myself because I'm not going to add that into my fettuccine. So I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to have a little bit less pasta. Each one of these nests is around 2.5 ounces, okay? So you're looking at 5, 10, 15, around 20 ounces of pasta. I'm going to be stuck with around 17. Stuck. It's homemade pasta. Who could be stuck? So the beauty of these is that you only have to cook them for around 2.5, 3 minutes. As soon as they start to float, you know that they're basically cooked. So that's all it is. Add them into the pot of boiling water and pay careful attention because you want to drain them after 3 or 4 minutes max. So as soon as your reduction starts to turn a beautiful golden brown and it's nicely thickened, take it off the heat and wait until that pasta is finished cooking. It might be a difference of 1 minute or 2, and you don't want to burn the reduction while you're waiting for that pasta to cook. So when you think the pasta is ready, go ahead and try a noodle and try all of that hard work and see. Once you get to that beautiful al dente texture, it's ready. Get a colander in your sink and drain off the pasta. Homemade fettuccine. Fantastic. All right, so once your pasta is drained, get your skillet back over that medium heat and add the pasta into the skillet. Now you want to reduce the heat down to low and gently stir together that reduction so that it coats all of the noodles. Next, you want to add in the shrimp and the grated cheese. So last, you want to fold all that together nice and gently so that everything is thoroughly combined. Oh, that smelled delicious. So the last touch, guys, add no more than a teaspoon of kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper. And just to accentuate the lemon, it's such a fresh little finish, squeeze a few drops of lemon juice over the top of that final skillet. Oh my goodness, this is absolutely gorgeous. It smells fantastic. I know it's going to taste amazing. Wow, mission accomplished. Let's cover this and get some asparagus done. So depending on how you've chosen to do your asparagus, if you've done it in the oven, the timing should be such that it's almost ready to come out of the oven. And if you're doing it at the barbecue like me, well, you've got around the same amount of time left. So let's get a great big cover up the dish, remove it from the heat, and let's get down to the barbecue. Let's start up the queue. All right, so here's my batch of asparagus spears that I've tossed with some olive oil and some salt and freshly ground black pepper. I'm gonna get those over medium heat on the grill for around 3 to 4 minutes per side. All right, so I basically put the asparagus on the grill over medium heat, flattened down along one row along the grill, and I'm gonna leave those cook for around 3 or 4 minutes per side. I'm just gonna gently roll them to give them that flip over to the second side. And around 6-7 minutes from now, we're done. We're back upstairs. All right, so around 6 or 7 minutes into this business, guys, your asparagus is done. Transfer that back into your platter. Let's get back up into the kitchen. Oh my goodness. We've got all of the trappings of an incredibly sexy summer supper right here, guys. It's all in front of us. Let's have a look. Okay, so here's our asparagus fresh off the grill, guys. It smells and looks fantastic. It's perfectly cooked. It's going to be absolutely delicious. An excellent side for this dish. And of course, oh my goodness, the pièce de résistance. Here it is, our lemon, garlic, shrimp fettuccine with homemade pasta. Come on! If that doesn't impress, I don't know what will. And of course, don't forget, we made this beautiful cherry tomato salad with fresh herbs and good olive oil and a little bit of chopped shallot. So guys, that trinity right there, let me show you a plating suggestion. Okay, so most of the time I'm a firm believer in white plates because it's very traditional. Sometimes I've been known to use black plates. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm a fan of black. But let's do a little arrangement, shall we? So here's my approach, guys. I would take those asparagus spears and line them up along the bottom middle of the plate, topped with a generous portion of that beautiful lemon, garlic, shrimp fettuccine, and a formed sort of tiny cup of the beautiful cherry tomato salad. All right, so the plating is done, and what's left? Well, we're just gonna choose something to drink with this beautiful dish. So, you know, when you've got lemon, garlic, and shrimp, you could do a Sauvignon Blanc, you could do a Chardonnay. Those are typical sort of pairings for this kind of a dish. But the one that I've chosen is actually a rosé. I think it's a perfect match, especially summertime, sexy summer supper series. You gotta go rosé. And so this one here is called Côte des Roses by Gérard Bertrand. Gérard Bertrand, all right, you might think rosé, it's kind of wussy. Guess what? It's a former French rugby player that is responsible for this wine, and I think that's a huge thing. I'm such a fan of that. The contradiction of rugby player and rosé, it just speaks to me. I think it's beautiful. So that's what I'm going to recommend, this beautiful rosé, Côte des Roses, or something similar. Any rosé. I mean, they're all very similar, but this one's got a beautiful little, and you know, the thing that's special about it is got a rose on the bottom of the bottle. So it's a little touch of class. I think that's a great pairing for this meal. So now all you have to do is pour the wine. So there you go, guys. That's my pairing suggestion, a lovely rosé courtesy of Gérard Bertrand. Thank you very much. To go along with this very scrumptious lemon garlic shrimp fettuccine with grilled asparagus and a cherry tomato salad. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the 2 more sexy summer supper recipes that are coming in this series. And of course, if you're interested in wines, wow, I would love for you to join me live right here in the Impulsive Culinarian kitchen every Wednesday night, or aka Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where I open up a brand new bottle of something delicious. I've got a couple of whites, a lot of reds, and maybe even a rosé. I might feature this one. It's actually quite delicious. I hope to see you in the next video, guys. This is Paul, the Impulsive Culinarian, signing off.